Now, we've got lots of good stuff going on around the league. I believe we even have an Everton story, which is mental. But we will start with United. And I, I heard United fans are going to put on the shelf their proposed protests because now they've got some shiny new players. And it does seem to be a pattern, doesn't it? For the appeasement seems to be to get them some shiny new things and maybe they'll shut up. And Sesko is the latest arrival, which of course we know is thwarting our plans because Newcastle had famously flirted with him to a high level and apparently offered him more money than United did. Garnacho, we know, is not beloved of the manager there, so he is likely to leave. He was being linked with a move to a certain other Premier League club. I'll see if you are still talking about that, along with our old favourites from what's the lad that we were both hoping wouldn't arrive? Oh my God, attacking player. We were linked to him heavily. Oh my God, I'm having a mental block. It'll come back to me. And finally, then Nicholas Jackson as well. There's news there around Chelsea and that, but we'll get back to that. Let's just talk quickly about United and the business that they're trying to do, including a fellow we'd like to have at our club in young Baleba.
It's funny, isn't it, how things can change and how thick of football fans in. I mean, like a month ago or so, they were all like, get the Moody Norwich scarves ready. We're going for this because Sir Jim said we were going to run out of money at Christmas. They've done a design that has the stadium turn into a circus tent, which is what we've become. PSR and all this, like, get the Moody Norwich scarves ready. We're going for it. All of a sudden, to a month later, like, let's just slow down a second because Sesko's come in, Kuna and Mbeumo, even though there's a bit of uncertainty around the whole PSR thing. But maybe Big Jim doesn't really care and he's opening, Carrington and updated. Let's just maybe run with this. Forget the finance for a second. Players are coming through the door, so that's great. Like Sesko, who they blew out the water, Newcastle with the wages being offered, so that comes into the mix. Yeah, we'll talk about a player who's likely to still go to Chelsea and one of the bomb squad, as they call them. I mean, this one as well. United want a midfielder. Baleba, what a talent. If this was to happen, could you imagine how much Brighton, Tony Bloom and Paul Barber would have the pants down of Manchester United, the fee and everything that would go into this? It would just be absolutely ridiculous. I think everyone's expecting it to be prohibitive, let's use a polite word. But yeah, you can imagine how much they would overcharge United. But you're right, Liverpool fans are going, oh, mind him, a lot would like him to come, maybe Adam Wharton and those players as well, but it doesn't look like it's happening. And funny is, Højlund, who's literally wanted to say all summer, I want to stay, I want to fight, who's now just been told by United, we don't care if you want to fight, we do not want you here. So everyone's expecting him to move to AC Milan on some sort of crazy deal as well. But it is interesting. And just speaking to a United journalist earlier, I was like, it's a bit weird the way we were told PSR. So Jim said we nearly shut the lights off at Christmas and all that. And there's now this spending. And the reply was, yeah, we don't really get it either. No one's really talking about PSR or answering questions at United. It almost has the feeling like, Trev, they're just rolling the dice a little bit. They're just going, screw PSR, we're going to gamble, we're going to try and get to the Champions League and seeing, if that'll clear us and get us back on the playing field and we go again from there. Yeah, but what happens if you don't get the Champions League? We'll deal with that at the time a little bit. So it is fascinating to see what will happen. But yeah, United have always been a basket case. An interesting case study right now.
But because it's United, they've got so many well-known journalists who carry water for them in the mainstream press. And I saw a guy who came up with the greatest example of false equivalency I've ever seen in my life, talking and comparing the booing of the anthem to the desecration of a minute's silence. Henry Winter. And Henry Winter today was chatting about how Amorim and his team need positivity. And, Sir Jim has come good and he's put some money in there. So let's, like you said, Let's forget all about the fact that they've been absolute shithouses to their staff.
Yeah.
They're talking about how they're a basket case financially and they need to cut corners and everyone gets half a pork pie a week. And let's just embrace the fact that there's some shiny new players and, like you said, ditch the Norwich scarves for a week. Unbelievable stuff. But, it's entertaining for this show. Next up are Chelsea, who are always entertaining for this show. And I mentioned Nicholas Jackson briefly. And Nkunku, Xavi Simons is the guy I was trying to think of. Maresca is looking at a bit of a squad turnover there as well. Unsurprisingly, when he's got old Sweeney in his camp to help him out. I think, and you seem to be suggesting it by your title here, I think Chelsea will do a lot between now and when that closes. I think they really want to do lots more because it's Chelsea. What do you reckon? Or what are the most likely deals there?
Oh, God, yeah. You see it on the screen there, Garnacho. It's still the full expectation of everyone that Garnacho's even said to his agent, to United, I don't care about other offers. I want to go to Chelsea. So get ready for a 9-year deal or something coming to the table, of course, when he does eventually arrive. Xavi Simons, as we said there, seemed to be in for looking at doing a swap deal with Red Bull, with Christian Nkunku, going back to where he came from in that regard. Just need to have stalled on that a little bit, but there still is expectation that Xavi Simons arrives. The funniest bit, though, was Maresca after the game they were playing the other night on Channel 5 or whatever, saying, because Levi Colwell's had the bad injury, and saying, yeah, we definitely need another centre-half. We're short there. Because apparently 9 players that can play centre-half isn't enough to cover it just now. Like, of course, Chelsea need another centre-half. Who would have thought? Who didn't recognise it, Ace? So that goes into the mix. You've got Nicholas Jackson, who's told Chelsea he wants to go, who's told Newcastle he wants to go there as well. But being Newcastle, they can't seem to draw the dots into turning that into a striker replacement. Hey-ho, that's the way it works. But you're right. It would surprise you no end whatsoever if Chelsea made significant moves all the way through to the close. It just feels like the big boys of the Premier League are ramping up somewhat, doesn't it?
It does. And it just would not be them if they didn't continue the madness deep into the window. Continuing our trip through the Premier League, we've got 2 left on the agenda, but I do want to go to the Jack Grealish one as well. Let's start with Spurs, however. And a guy who was very impressive against us at the weekend there, Abridjetse, is apparently a focus of interest for them. And they have at least 1 or 2 others having apparently moved away or moved on from what seemed to be strong initial interest in Harvey Elliott.
Yeah, it did seem that they made a real call for Harvey Elliott. Remember, we said that Son's gone, of course. James Maddison has that injury that could even be a season ender. So they were looking at real options there, and Harvey Elliott's camp has been spoken to. It does seem, though, to be fair, they pivoted away from that with Thomas Frank. And it's 2 big stories, really, isn't it? That they are in for Eze, who was linked with Arsenal previously, but it does seem Spurs have jumped to the front of the queue, offering him Champions League football. So we'll see if a deal gets done there. And then the other one from Manchester City, isn't it? Savinho, the winger. So those are the 2 players that, I think if you're honest and you were a Spurs fan, they've always been a basket case of a club, of course. But if someone has said to you at the start of the season, Spurs fans, let's think about this. Kudus, Savinho and Eze were going to come in to boost your attacking options. I bet a lot of Spurs fans will be licking their lips at that, wouldn't they? Entertaining players, different skill sets, but, a really attacking squad for Thomas Frank, let's put it that way. So, yeah, I think these are deals that were expected to happen. You mentioned City, and we're going to talk on there because it's a knock-on effect. One of them is a City player as well. But Spurs are another one who've almost recognised that, listen, all the big boys are making moves. We best join in this shake-up and quickly.
Yes, and City did themselves a favour by getting a lot of business done early on in the window, no more than Liverpool did. If anything, actually, they were quicker out of the blocks than we were. But they're not finished yet. I'm really fascinated by this Donnarumma thing because I'm wondering if you can let me know what it is that's causing him to have the fallout with his current club. Why is it that he's unsettled there? I didn't see that one coming. I don't think many people did. There's also the Jack Grealish thing. I've seen lots and lots, Dave, this week in general of sympathetic stuff about Jack Grealish. Whereas I think it would be very tempting and an awful lot of maybe City, dare I suggest that City prompted, City fed stories have been based around how he's a out of control lunatic on drunk every weekend. I'm not sure too many people are buying that. There seems to be a lot of sympathy for him and that Guardiola hasn't treated him very well. He has gotten himself a move, albeit to the blue shite, God love him. And there are some other moves as well around that you're going to mention. Maybe Forest as well, a story there to wrap us up. So let's start there with City and Donnarumma and whether you think they have still business left in them.
Yeah, they're the club that spent 200 million plus in January, 200 million already in the window, still look like they're going to do big business. And for all the talk that we're scandalous despite our net spend and how we know that's balanced up a little bit, it's just funny how City just seem to be escaping all eyes. And the one thing I'd bring into the mix, which I saw was a great tweet on Twitter earlier today, if you look at now who's set to leave City by the end of this summer, Pep Guardiola will have sold 80% roughly of the players he's bought since 2023, which is quite interesting, you know, how the turn, you know, he'll quite happily turn them, but no one says anything about it, does it a little bit? But hey-ho. Yeah, Donnarumma is an interesting one because Galatasaray made an inquiry for Edison. They made it and, you know, they followed it up and Edison seems to fancy the move potentially. Donnarumma, everyone expected him to sign a new deal at PSG, didn't they? Because he's got a year left to go. That didn't seem to be progressing, but PSG have almost gone a hard line of do a deal with us quickly or you're going. You are not running in, you know, to the last year of your deal. And Donnarumma and obviously, we know his agent, etc., have played that, oh, this is shocking and everything. Let's not forget, this is the man who abandons too strong, but he quite happily exited his boyhood club, didn't he, AC Milan, you know, where he was captain to get the riches of PSG. So, you know, Donnarumma knows the European system. Let's not, you know, undersell that at all. So, yeah, it could be one in, one out for the goalkeeping. As is on the screen, Savinho set to go. And quite a lot of journalists have been saying this for a while. And I kind of would, it didn't make any sense until the Savinho Spurs offer came in, Rodrigo, didn't it? Because who could match those wages in the Premier League? We all know the answer, of course. Remember, that team that don't pay Erling Haaland and his agent and his dad that much money, you know, that team especially. So that goes into the mix. Like you said as well, further exits. Grealish is now an Everton loanee. There is an option there for 50 million. So it'll be interesting to see how he does under the Moisire. It's one of those that you'll keep an eye on throughout the season. You won't call it either way. What I will say as well, though, and it's a bit away from the transfer show, but I want to say this. You're right. City and their journalists seem to want to paint this dark picture, don't they, of Jack Grealish. He's boozing all the time. He's out of control and all this. I know from a few friends in life, Jack Grealish has done a lot of charity work for various different charities, especially things like MND and things within Manchester. So it's funny how that picture's painted on one side, but he does so much charity work. And I know one he's been involved in. So let's just have that correct and on the map at the same time when we're talking about Jack Grealish. James McAtee there. It's expected he'll move to Forest. You mentioned them as well. So this club, they spent 200 million in the January window. And by the way, none of those players are playing anymore, aren't they? Is it Sudakov? He's never in the squad. Victor Rice, he's now going on loan, isn't he, to Girona, one of their thingy clubs. Others are departing. I spent 200 million already this summer, and I'm going to go big again. So just remember that when everyone's talking about how Liverpool are spending in the Premier League and all this. Not the real story, is it?
And again, not transfer show fodder per se, but we're talking about City. And isn't it remarkable, my friend, that we've managed to find ourselves within days of the kickoff of the new season and nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. And those of us who are cynical and black-pilled around this type of thing in football will have said that nothing would happen and that the lawyers would tie it up forever and eventually walk away with some sort of slap on the wrist. But man, it's still disappointing, regardless of anything else, because we're doing the transfer show here. And right there, we have a situation where we know that fuckery has gone on and it looks like it will go completely unpunished. That is difficult to stomach. It is.
Yeah, it's. I always think there's another way of putting it. They've just pushed this for so long into the long grass. And we almost go back on the transfer show a little bit, what we said many months ago. And in fact, maybe even to last summer a little bit, or January, I can't remember exactly. City have been hiring PR firms around this, to put almost disinformation in or like spin stories that way. And you're right, the only people who are getting rich of this are the lawyers, aren't they? City's lawyers making a fortune, setting it up this way so the Premier League can't afford to keep paying their lawyers. I mean, the judgment's in, as we know. We're all waiting for all they're getting charged with was the lack of cooperation. You remember they were playing the Premier League are treating us fairly, so we're not cooperating. That's all they'll get. And they'll get a fine for that, won't they? And everyone will just move on. But it's probably a damning indictment. How many things, the points cases for Palace, Forest, Everton, Villa, all those got resolved. For God's sake, Crystal Palace have had a hearing and an appeal declined in all this time, and yet we've still not got 115 decisions. Shocking.